This video is on focal points for Things I Know to Be True by Andrew Bovell. I'm going to offer you some key sections to focus on when studying, exploring, or performing. Berlin. This is Rosie's large monologue at the start of the play. In it, she recounts her journey travelling through Europe in her gap year, the places that she goes, the people that she meets, and her connection to her family back home in Australia. This is quite a big speech, so I suggest splitting it into two, and it works quite nicely. Part 1 will go from Rosie's first line, Berlin, a winter coat, and part 1 will finish at life, when will life start? Part 2 is slightly longer, and it's about a relationship with a boy called Emmanuel that she meets. Start this section at "and then there he is" at a club in Mitte, and end it at the end of the scene. Pip. This is Pip's monologue that takes place in the family garden. In it, she recalls memories of her childhood, both happy and sad, and she starts to interrogate how Fran, her mum, behaved when she was younger. Fran and Rosie. This is a short duologue between Fran and Rosie when they're preparing food in the kitchen. Bob is in the garden and has a couple of lines that interject with this scene. If I were you, I'd cut those and focus on Rosie and Fran in the kitchen. This scene is called As Autumn Turns. Start at Fran's line, "What are you going to do with yourself?" and end on Fran's line, "No, I like work, I like who it lets me be," just before Ben enters. Pip's second monologue. This monologue is a spoken version of a letter that Pip writes to Fran. You may want to chop the speech in half so it's a little bit more manageable. Part 1 starts at "Dear Mum" and ends about halfway through when Pip says, "I'm scared of seeing the truth in your face like you saw it in mine." Part 2 would start where she's talking about a man that she's met. "I met him at an education conference," and end at the end of the speech where she says, "My love, Pip." Mark's monologue. This is the winter section and is a nicely sized monologue with Mark talking about memories of the garden and reflecting on seeing Fran smoking. Mark's confession. This is a four-hander with Bob and Fran, Mark and Rosie. Rosie's less vocal in this section, so her reacting in this scene is a key focus. It's fairly long and it begins at "The storm breaks" with Mark by the back door in the rain, and it drives through to the climax of the act. It's a scene with huge stakes for all involved and builds to an explosive ending of the first act of the play. As winter turns. This is Mark and Rosie in a duologue as Mark is packing to leave. It's friendly and tender and gives a really good insight into how these two siblings connect with one another. End after Mark's line, "Mia." Mark's second monologue. In this monologue, Mark speaks about leaving home and flying to Sydney. Again, there are huge stakes for him here. The challenge of leaving, the sadness and the pain, but also the bravery of doing what he needs to do. Ben's monologue. This is a short speech that Ben has reflecting on the chaotic nature of his childhood and of the love and romance between his parents. Bob and Fran. This duologue takes place after they've danced together. Their dance is full of nostalgia and poignancy to both of them. In this duologue, Bob and Fran share concerns about their lives, about if they've wasted their lives and what the future holds. Ben and Rosie. This short section sees Ben return to the house filled with hostility and panic. It's a great section to explore the two contrasting energies of the two characters. Start this section at Ben's line, "Where's Mum and Dad?" and end on Rosie's line, "So am I." Rosie. This is Rosie's final monologue in two sections, and it's filled with sadness and shock. I'd divide it into two. The first section starting at her shift finished at 3 a.m. and ending at arrival at the hospital where she worked. Part 2 will begin at "I hang up" and end at "It goes on." This final section requires substantial emotional investment, so would definitely benefit from building up to it. There are other trialogues in the play with 3 characters, as well as scenes with the whole family. These focal points that I've picked out for you are really good working solo or in a pair. They're also really good if you're working alongside a director. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you, please give it a like. Do check out these other videos and subscribe. And if you want to support what I do on the channel, you can click on the link in the video description. All the best.